Don't know about you guys, but I feel like every new release is just for high-end, expensive hardware, and the budget buyers are getting shafted. The new Ryzen CPUs are just plainly not worth buying, not only because they're overpriced, but so are the motherboards and so is the DDR5 RAM. And not to mention, there are very few situations where a new CPU is actually of any use to you. With that in mind, I'm here to offer a lifeline, perhaps the best value PC I've ever done. £650 with a Ryzen 5 processor, RTX 3060 graphics card, providing amazing performance and good looks alongside. We're going to go through the parts, putting it together and testing it out. It could be the inspiration for your next PC build. The graphics card forms the core of our build and does the heavy lifting when it comes to games. We got this RTX 3060 MSI Ventus for an amazing price, just £275, and that's thanks to an eBay discount code. It's really worth keeping tabs on these when they happen because some of the deals are fantastic. Starting off with our CPU, Ryzen 5 4500. It's a bit of a dark horse, this CPU. It costs only £104 and seems to give the performance of about a Ryzen 5 3600, just missing a few features like PCIe 4.0, which don't really matter for budget buyers anyway. We'll use the included cooler, the Wraith Stealth, which is fine for this class of CPU, but a budget tower cooler like the VetTrue V5 would be a decent addition, but the only thing you're really going to get from it is lower noise and perhaps better looks, depending on what you prefer. And the rest. Motherboard, Gigabyte B450 Aorus Elite, and here's where we've got to be careful. The Ryzen 5 4500 is a fairly new chip, so it won't always be supported by B450 motherboards out of the box. Luckily, mine shipped with a BIOS version that supported the 4500 without any updates needed. However, I have used other B450 motherboards where I've needed to update the BIOS using my trusty Athlon 200GE CPU. So my advice would be to either check with the seller which BIOS version it's on, or buy a motherboard that has a BIOS flashback button such as the MSI B550-A Pro. But overall, the motherboard quality doesn't matter if you're just going to use this Ryzen 5 4500 because it's a low power usage chip overall, so even the cheap boards are going to run this CPU absolutely perfectly. The RAM we're using, or memory, is bog standard DDR4 3200 CL16. Make sure with RAM that you're buying it in sets of 2 sticks or 4 sticks so that they run in dual channel. Don't buy RAM slower than 3200 MHz because especially on Ryzen systems you're going to get much lower gaming performance. So get this or 3600 MHz for the best price to performance pick for most users. Storage. Now we've got a great deal on Amazon for this Intel 670p. It's a 500GB NVMe SSD. Gives us a nice speedy boot drive and enough room for a few games. I got this for £35 to keep it in budget, but I strongly suggest you guys building your own systems get this at 1TB or larger, seeing how big games are getting these days. The case we used is the MSI MagForge 100M at £43, great price. Very similar to the Forge 100R that we used recently, just that the fans on this one are controlled by 4-pin RGB rather than 3-pin, which means you get solid colours but you don't get those fancy dancing patterns. Now the power supply, I'm calling this the deal of the year because I got these EVGA 600 watt 80 plus white power supplies for just £19 each. Yep, not the best power supply out there, but an absolutely insane price. The downside of cheaper power supplies is usually increased noise and lower reliability. I'd never normally advocate for a power supply this cheap, but I actually trust EVGA to make a competent product here. Any other brand in this price range I would avoid for sure. The best tactic really for buying power supplies is to get a high quality 750 or 850 watt gold rated power supply from a good manufacturer, Corsair, Seasonic, all these good brands, not these cheap ones that you've not really heard of before. Because not only do you get a better product now, you get the ability to upgrade over time to more powerful gear without needing to buy a new unit. And to round it out, we have a combined Bluetooth and Wi-Fi PCIe adapter. That's the parts. It's build time, sunshine. blows, but she doesn't blow, nor does she suck. I think this looks very smart indeed. Nicely balanced, bit of RGB but not overdone. All looks great, cables managed nicely. Overall, a very comfortable and simple build. Really, the only thing I would change is getting some kind of anti-sag system on the video card to keep it razor straight, but it's only a minor concern and doesn't really affect the day-to-day running of the machine. Now that you've seen the build, let's check out the gaming performance and those important temperatures. And it just goes to show how much power you can get on a modest budget. It's a really good time to buy budget stuff at the moment. Cyberpunk, it's known as this titan of a game that's really hard to run, but you can see that it's absolutely playable at 60 FPS, especially if you're using DLSS to boost the frame rate. As for the rest, we're on easy street. Bearing in mind we're at 1440p resolution, it's quite impressive that we're hitting over 144 frames per second in Fortnite and over 100 FPS in Apex Legends. If you play on 1080p resolution, or you just turn those settings down to medium or low, you're easily going to get those high frame rates that you esports gamers love. 165 FPS on Apex is certainly possible at 1080p on this PC with the correct settings. Temperature wise, we get a bit toasty on our Prime 95 CPU test, but that's to be expected because we're using the stock cooler. The important thing is that in the games, the readout is showing lovely cool temperatures, so nothing to worry about at all using the stock cooler. The video card temperature chilling at 67 degrees shows us just how easy the RTX 3060 is to cool. So in conclusion, this is hard to beat in terms of price to performance, and I'm sure you'd be happy using this video as a build template. If you like this video, check out the review of the MSI Forge case seen on the screen now, or our playlist of PC builds. See you later, sunshine!